Say goodbye to your sugar high. These purveyors of childhood cavities have all retired to the graveyard of Candyland. Or have they? Some classic candies may be gone forever, but others linger on. Keep watching to see if your favorite old school sweet treats are still around. It was a very different time when you could get 2 varieties of candy cigarettes at your local drugstore. One was pink bubblegum wrapped in paper. The other was hard, chalky white candy. Some types came with a coating of powdered sugar or baking powder that let puffs of smoke shoot out the end, kind of like a real cigarette. You could usually find them lined up next to bubblegum cigars and shredded bubblegum that was supposed to look like chewing tobacco, and they were all designed to make you feel like a grown-up as you worked on your daily sugar intake. Of course, that was back before the big anti-smoking pushes, and studies began to come out linking candy cigarettes to smoking as an adult. Although plans to ban candy cigarettes entirely in the US never quite followed through, the damage was done. Today, only a few companies still manufacture the treat, usually just calling them candy sticks, but we know what they really are. When Ouch bubblegum was at its peak, it wasn't about actually chewing the gum. The taste was nothing special. It was all about the package the gum came in. Those awesome tin cases were made to look like bandage containers, and they could be used to store loose change, baseball cards, cool rocks, dead bugs, and even actual bandages if you were accident prone. You could even refill it with candy that actually tasted good. Hubba Bubba still makes Ouch bubblegum, but the tin case disappeared for a while, rendering it completely useless in the minds of many. Fortunately, the tin has recently made a triumphant return.
Butterfinger BBs. I never saw these before.
Butterfinger BBs had everything going for them. They were deliciously bite-sized little morsels and had everyone's favorite juvenile delinquent, Bart Simpson, as a spokesperson. Butterfinger's partnership with The Simpsons was huge, with around 150 commercials spotlighting all things Butterfinger.
Speak English, Doc.
I want that Butterfinger!
You need help, man.
It seems like it would be a winning combination, so why were Butterfinger BBs discontinued? After a 14-year run, BBs disappeared in 2006, but nobody seems to know why. Devoted fans who reached out to the company weren't given answers. Butterfinger Bites proved a poor replacement, and there are still a ton of fans mourning the loss of these crispy little bites. For many, they were a go-to movie theater snack, combining perfectly with popcorn. Bazooka gum was hard as a rock, and the flavor lasted less than a minute. But what else could you buy with the 5 cents in your pocket left over from lunch? Sure, it made your jaw ache, but those few seconds of flavor and the resulting bubbles you could blow were totally worth it. Plus, there was the novelty of the comics inside, featuring the adventures of Bazooka Joe and his trademark eye patch. So what if they weren't funny? Collect enough wrappers, you could get yourself a prize. This made this classic candy a favorite of kids everywhere. Even though this classic gum from the 40s is still on shelves in some stores, it went through a virtually unrecognizable phase when the red, white, and blue packaging was replaced with more modern pastel colors. And those cringeworthy comics we endured, they vanished in 2012, and we actually missed them. In their place, Bazooka temporarily included puzzles and brain teasers, with codes to unlock online video games. Today, Bazooka is almost back to its original form if you can find it, comics and all. There was probably no candy parents hated more than Whistle Pops, the sucker that could be used as a working whistle when you first unwrapped it. Some relief for adult ears came after the holes closed up and the whistle stopped functioning, not long after it hit your tongue.
It's a lollipop with a on the top.
Though the original Whistle Pops were discontinued, Chupa Chups reintroduced them under the name Melody Pops. Despite their coolness, however, they're nowhere near as widely available as they were once upon a time. You can still find them, but we're still waiting for an even wider comeback. Sorry, parents. In the early 90s, there was one surefire way to prove your badassness to your friends, the Crybaby Bubblegum Challenge. The packaging claimed the extreme sourness of this bubblegum lasted only about 40 seconds, but it seemed so much longer than that when it was your cheeks taking the beating. You ruled the playground if you could put more than one in your mouth at the same time, but you couldn't let anyone see the tears in your eyes. Kids still love to test themselves with sour candy, but unfortunately, Crybaby is no longer the king of the playground. It's harder to find Crybaby gum today, but food-based challenges never die. The playground pain lives on today, even if it's moved to TikTok instead, if you can find any variety of the sour snack. There was literally nothing satisfying about eating candy buttons. All the fun was in mindlessly peeling the brightly colored dots off the paper. That meant you usually ate about as much paper as you did candy. Candy Buttons by Necco disappeared when the company went out of business in 2018. The new owners are making the candy buttons on Necco's old equipment and even selling them under the Necco name, but they're not as widely available as they once were, and they're nowhere near as cool. Kids today just don't have the patience for Jawbusters, which were first sold in 1919, not to be confused with Jawbreakers. Willy Wonka's everlasting gobstoppers had nothing on these candies. You didn't chew them. You didn't really suck on them either. You just kind of held them in your mouth until they slowly dissolved or your cheek went numb, whichever happened first. The flavor tended to wear off after about 5 minutes, so you sometimes forgot it was even in there until you started drooling on yourself. Did anyone ever actually get to the end of one of these everlasting Jawbuster candies? We sure didn't, and we'd like them to make a comeback so we can try again. Ferrera Candy seems to have cut back on production of many classic favorites, including Pixie Stix and Atomic Fireballs. Every time a child of the 90s saw that brightly colored Tongue Splashers paint can on a gas station counter, Mom knew she was in trouble. It only costs 10 cents to get one of those pieces of bubblegum, and before long, their mouth, lips, and probably hands would be stained with bright colors. That was the entire point of this candy. They were called Splashers for a reason. Parents and laundry doers everywhere probably rejoiced when Tongue Splashers went off the market, but you can still buy something similar today under the name Double Bubble Painters. It's just not as cool when they don't come in a paint can. If you ask a child of the 90s what the best flavor of Laffy Taffy was, there's no question they'll tell you sparkle cherry. Something about that crunch of the glitter sprinkles and the sweetness of the stretchy taffy made this a delightfully satisfying treat.
Each chewy piece is exactly 50% Laffy and 50% Taffy.
While Laffy Taffy is still widely available, it's not very easy to find sparkle cherry in stores anymore. You could still order it in bulk online if you get a major craving, until it was completely discontinued in 2024. Yes, Runts are still widely available, but today's Runts are nothing like the Runts of our childhood. They're still in the cute fruit shapes we remember, but the less observant Runts fan might not notice that the shapes and flavors aren't all the same. The original Runts came in orange, cherry, banana, strawberry, and lime. Throughout the years, they've added and removed different flavors, and today they also include apple and grape, and lime is no longer available, upsetting old school fans everywhere. PB Max candy bars were only around for a little while, appearing in 1989 and vanishing sometime in the mid-90s. Sure, the commercials were vaguely annoying, but we were willing to forgive that for this delicious treat. So what happened? Some say the family behind parent company Mars had something against peanut butter, so they pulled the product despite its success. We don't know if that's true or not, but even if Mars execs don't like peanut butter, they could have left some for the rest of us. We still miss that combination of salty peanut butter, crispy, crunchy cookie bits, and chocolate coating.
PB Max, we mean peanut butter.
Never before has marketing been so honest as it was with Garbage Candy. When you popped the top of the little black trash can container, you found hard but powdery, tart but sweet candy in shapes like bottles, shoes, and fish bones. You can still find a modern replica version, but fans say they're not quite the same. The original candy came from Tops and was the brainchild of Art Spiegelman, the same Pulitzer Prize-winning creator responsible for Garbage Pail Kids and wacky packages. There definitely seemed to be a theme, and we do miss those little garbage cans. They were handy for some post-indulgence toy storage, and while we might be more likely to keep paper clips in them today, they were still undeniably neat. Astro Pops had it all. They were sweet, lasted forever, and to a kid, they seemed as big as your head. Plus, they came from space. You might not have known this when you were a kid, but Astro Pops actually had some serious space cred. They were invented in 1963 by some actual rocket scientists who quit their day jobs and decided to make candy for a living. They created special equipment to make the multicolored, rocket-shaped pop and made the career change of a lifetime. Astro Pops were around for decades after their space race era birth. They were discontinued in 2004, but there's good news if you still have a craving. Longtime Astro Pop fan and Leaf Candy brand CEO Aaliyah Kassoff negotiated the purchase of the rights to the candy in 2010. After rebuilding all the specialty equipment needed to make them, Astro Pops were reborn. You can find them in specialty candy shops now, and fingers crossed they'll be more widely available someday. You're familiar with Pop Rocks. It's the candy that was fun as a kid and hurts your teeth as an adult. Pop Rocks hit the shelves in 1976, and they were so popular that General Foods released a spin-off candy called Space Dust. Unfortunately, Space Dust was never as popular as its rocky counterpart. It was essentially a more powdery version of Pop Rocks, but the combination of a distinctly drug-like appearance and a name similar to Angel Dust meant that parents weren't fans of it. Space Dust was renamed Cosmic Candy, but the original name and kind of creepy package mascots still haunted it. The hype over Space Dust made it super popular for a while, but the whole thing just sort of fizzled out. No pun intended. Here's a fascinating footnote, though. There's a good reason for the space theme. Pop Rocks creator William Mitchell also invented Tang, the orange drink made for astronauts that was later marketed to families. Bonkers were everything that candy should be. If you're old enough to remember Saturday morning cartoons, you'll probably remember the commercials. They starred boring-looking people who eat a piece of Bonkers candy, then get hit with a giant piece of fruit, much to their amusement. While it didn't exactly make sense, it definitely made an impression. The soft vanilla and fruit chews were hugely popular in the 80s and 90s until they were eventually discontinued. Fans were devastated, but once had a glimmer of hope. Bonkers fruit candy was almost brought back in 2018 by Leaf Brands. They not only purchased the rights to the candy, but tracked down the original inventor to get some inside information about how Bonkers is made. They dipped back into the old formulas and even took a crack at redesigning the machinery specially made to churn out Bonkers, but nothing's shown up on shelves just yet. Jolly Ranchers are still around and still come in a wide, delicious range of flavors, but those of a certain age will remember that they once came in a form other than those dental work ruining rectangles we all know and love. Jolly Rancher Stix were actually one of the OG forms of the hard candy favorite, sort of. The early incarnation was Taffy, known as Fire Stix, but that changed somewhere along the line. You'll find plenty of people lamenting the loss of the sticky rectangles, even if they're mostly remembered for becoming knife-sharp after being honed down by an afternoon of licking. And if anyone was brave enough to try to bite into it, the sticky mess could glue your teeth together. Jolly Ranchers in stick form had a resurgence, but they weren't the same. The old school versions were twice the length of the newest 3-inch incarnation, and gone are the once beloved flavors of cinnamon and caramel. There's a lot of old school Halloween candy that rarely makes it into trick-or-treat bags today, and that's a shame. Take the unfortunately named Sugar Daddy. These caramel lollipops are still around, and anyone who loves caramel knows that they're delicious. They go all the way back to 1925 when they were sold under the even more unfortunate name of Papa Sucker.
Yikes.
Sugar babies followed soon after, but it wasn't until 1965 that the Sugar Mama came along. This was essentially a bar version of the Sugar Daddy, except the Sugar Mama was covered in chocolate. Seems like it would be a total win, so it's not clear what happened to it, but it seems to have disappeared sometime in the 1980s, leaving behind nothing but memories and empty boxes. Fans hoping to reunite this broken candy home still hope for their revival. Lifesavers have been around since 1912 and were always designed to have a hole in the center, but it wasn't until the 90s that the company decided to put those missing holes to a good use. With the help of Pixar-produced commercials, it seemed like these little, flavor-packed candies were on the road to surefire success. So what happened? Lifesavers holes were sold in plastic tubes, and in early 1991, they were pulled from shelves just a few months after being introduced. Those few short months had seen sales of at least 40 million, but it was reported that at least 4 kids had swallowed or almost choked on the lid of its plastic packaging, and it had been deemed unsafe. The company redesigned the packaging to be more kid-proof and returned to shelves for a little while. Pulling the product may have been for the best. One Redditor shared that a classmate fashioned the tube into a makeshift BB gun at the cost of a window, while another had to see a doctor when the candy got stuck up their nose. 90s kids were built different.
I'm a dumb.
Brach's is another candy giant that's been around for a long time. It started as a Chicago candy store back in 1904, and they've seen a lot of their products come and go in the decades since. Brach's Ice Blue Mints were something extraordinary though, and it's not entirely clear when they made their debut. We do know that they were popular throughout the 1970s, and they were a beautiful blue hard candy with a mint flavor that hit all of the right notes. The Ice Blue Mints eventually became Ice Blue Mint Coolers, and they changed shape and were sort of toned down a bit. They were still wildly popular, although that didn't save them from discontinuation at some point in the early 2010s. Those who loved these real peppermint oil candies weren't happy about it, heading to candy store comment sections to plead for their return. Part candy, part sore throat soother, part breath freshener, and part breathing aid. It seems as though everyone had their own reason for loving these bright blue bites.